Latasha, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Charles, for having me.
So I've been doing these interviews, and so hopefully it gets tighter and better since you weren't the first one. But I'm giving everyone an opportunity to come out in election season and talk about their candidacy. And I wanted to have you on to talk about your run. I guess one of the common questions I ask is, this is not an easy thing to do. Everybody's busy and has a lot going on. So you have to really think about this and pray on whether you should run or not when this opportunity comes up. So let's start off by just telling me why you're running and how the union of you and Max came along.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting story. Um, Very good question, too. And again, thank you, Charles, for having me. I would speed up and say this has been very exciting thus far, but I'm being told that it hasn't even kicked off yet, if you will. Um, but I didn't necessarily decide to run, if you will. About 2.5 years ago now, I was one of the speakers at Dr. Eric Wallace's Black Family Matters event. I think it was like July of 2020, probably, or 2019, July 2019. And I was just one of the many speakers that was there. And Max was there. I had never met Max, never had heard of him. And I would imagine him as well as me. And so it was just, we were just speaking against basically parenthood, just really standing up for Black families. And I spoke primarily about the education system, the indoctrination, et cetera, concerning that. And so after the event, everybody was just socializing, et cetera. And very good event, just very, very good, awesome. And so, and I say this to say, everybody left there just excited, blessing God, and that was it. And so then towards the end of 2019, and most of your viewers may or may not know, my husband and I are evangelists. And so I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. So as I tell this part, we really believe in the prophetic and how God deals with us spiritually. And so, towards maybe November, December, towards the end of that year, the Lord showed me a dream. And in the dream, me and Max were doing politics, just doing political things. And another candidate that was running at that time was in a dream as well. And so long story, long dream short, many things were going on. And so when I woke up, I shared it with my husband because, and I've shared my testimony to you many times in terms of even while we're in Chicago, Illinois, through dreams. And for Christians, they should believe that God still speaks that way. And so I knew it was something. I just didn't know what it would be. And I told my husband, I said, well, I think God wants us to do something political with this guy, Max. I didn't know it. I didn't reach out to him. And I just said, all right, we'll just keep it in prayer. Never thought about it. And again, didn't worry about it because I know, if you will, within my own measure, how God operates. And so I know prophecy comes in part. And then I know for at least now, maybe 5 years or so, God has been really dealing with my husband and I concerning our political discourse in terms of how he wants to use us. So I was already anticipating something from God in terms of what he wants us to do. So time went on, and I'm meeting all kind of wonderful people in Illinois, just continuing to be a voice against what's happening in our education system and what's happening to families in Illinois. And then one night, September 23rd, I think to be exact, I'm checking my email before I go to bed, and I'm just really telling you the story, Charles. And I opened the email, and to be honest, I wasn't really following who was running for governor's office or anything. I'm really not big on social media, and I should be, and I am now trying to get there, but I really wasn't following per se. And so I opened my email, and when I had seen it, it looked like spam because it was just like a red question mark, but it said Max 2022, and I deleted it, Charles. I did. I deleted it because I thought it was junk. I wasn't following. I hadn't thought of Max in 2 years. I didn't know him. So, and then I just heard the Holy Spirit say, undo it. And I heard hit undo. And then I opened the email and I read it and I said, running for lieutenant governor. And it did something to me. And my first thought was, and I told this to Max, I say, because I didn't know the process. I said, well, who told him I wanted to run for the lieutenant governor? Because I'm like, he didn't call and ask me anything. Nobody got my permission to put my name on no short list, So I was just like, okay. And as I kept reading it, that's when the dream dropped in my spirit. And I'm gonna be honest, I began to cry because, politics, the corrupt side is the side we are always fearful of. But the Lord, as we know as believers, government is biblical. And I know people like to separate politics from the church, and they should not, because the entire totality of the word of God is dealing with kings and queens and laws and decrees and government. And I think what people are most afraid of is the corruption and the misrepresentation of how civil government is supposed to work. And I think that's where my tears flowed, because I was just like, oh my God, do you really want to put my family in this, on this spotlight, if you will? And so I woke my husband up because it was late. He was just like, huh? And I shared it with him the next day, and we just began to pray. So I didn't respond. And we just, literally fast and prayed about it, because that's a big thing. And I tell people, I'm serious. It's not about winning or losing. It's about just obeying God, period. And so I prayed about my response and what I would say to this. And so I responded in a way that was just honorable. I just felt honored, no matter which direction it went. I really did feel honored to even be named that someone would even see, if you will, that I would even have the ability to lead Illinois. That's where I was. So about a week or so, I responded, after me and my husband, felt okay to respond, a confirmation from God. And then, as Christian, you saw us praying, all right, God, if it ain't you, shut the door. You know how we do, shut the door, God, just knock the hinges off, throw the key away, because I'm on a list. So, and I'm knowing like there are some extraordinary people got to be on this list, because I'm like, I'm not politically savvy. All I know is where I stand from a biblical perspective in terms of family and our children in the school systems. In the process of time, after the 30-day span of them vetting, et cetera, I got a phone call, and I was told that I was nominated to run alongside Max for governor. And so it was an honor, and it's still an honor. And so that's how this happened. And I've told people my yes was prophetic. Whether they believe it or not, that was my yes, to obey God. Because what people have to understand when it comes to politics, we're talking about principalities. We're talking about spiritual wickedness, rules in high places. And God needs his vessels to be in these places. And time again, we gather as the body of Christ, and we study and we learn, and we give God glory for so many that have went before us. Daniel, Esther, Deborah, the list is endless. Our Lord himself, more importantly. And then we look at other great patriarchs, just even in our time. And we know that all the great movements, especially that have happened in America, has been faith leaders, have been faith-based. And so just a little encouragement to the church. Don't be afraid of politics, because these things govern the mobility of our lives, right? And so we need to stand against and have a voice, a loud voice, against policies that are literally strategically destroying our families. Our children, the school systems, taxations and all these things. And so that's why I grabbed the torch, and I'm picking it up with boldness. And I tell people, my husband and I, we have been speaking out against these things. If you will, my platform is the same. I'm learning a lot. Trust me, I'm learning a lot, but my platform is the same. And so we've been speaking out against these things and against government. Even when Obama was running, we were very vocal about policies, and as you know, I'm from Louisiana, so we were very vocal in our hometown about different policies that are literally being legislated against the morality of God. That is my main concern, the weightier matters of the law. And I'm more concerned with things that are strategically designed to rob people of their stability and their soul in Christ. So that's the reason I'm here, that I'm named among this, and I am excited. I am still honored. I am honored by God that he would see me, that he have called my husband and I and have equipped us with a message. And that's what I tell people, because as you know, here, there's a lot of people running, a lot of money behind a lot of people, all that good stuff. And so my word to everybody, every meeting I go to, don't follow the money. You better follow this message, because faith come by hearing, and hearing the word of God. And so that's what people need to be more focused on, who have a heart for the people.
Wow. That is definitely an interesting story. And you two come together then, and maybe if we have time, we'll get back to what Max said his side was like. But now this is the ticket, you're running, but obviously there's going to be some doing involved, right? So Max is running, you're running with him. He's running because he thought there was some change needed. So talk a bit about the problems you all see in the state right now that need to be addressing.
Yeah, definitely. Number one, for me, I would speak from my angle, is the education. I am terribly disheartened about the state of education in Illinois. So that's one of the things, and then I'll expound. The next thing that I can speak to, that Max, is what's Max's heartbeat, and then of course, as you have him on the show, he can explain where his heart is with fixing Illinois, is the pension reform and taxation. So those are the things. So I like to put them under the umbrella of maybe the social economics of Illinois. And so that's the way I like to group them. And so you have the economy, which is dealing with the monetary, and then when you bring in the social economics, you're talking about the social constructs. And there's so many things happening in terms of that. And for me, what I'm seeing is that all these things, from the fiscal side to the social side, they are literally destroying Illinois. It really is. And so we do need leadership that is more fiscally and socially responsible, more responsible government that can build up the citizens of Illinois. There's a great plight. People are leaving Illinois, because of things that are happening with their children in the education system, the excessive taxes that are in the country, in the state. And so that's the two main things. And so when you put those two things together, I mean, you're talking about destroying home ownership. I mean, you're talking about, business, entrepreneurialism. And so when you have these high taxes, and then you have this attack on the family, this attack on children, you have this great attack on parental rights, and that's been my tagline, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I didn't coin it, but I believe in it, that right now, parental rights is the civil rights issue of our day. And so when you have that, everything that we can talk about, when you have this attack of the foundation, it's inevitable that your community, that your city, that your state, and even your country is going to crumble. And so we have to build up that foundation. We have to build up the monetary, the money, the schools, et cetera. So that's the platform.
Well, let's talk a bit about education then, because that is kind of your forte. And you've been on the show before, so we're going to talk a bit about some of the things that you believe and you say. But this is an area that not only do you know well, but you walk the walk. So you talk about the problems in education, but you homeschool, and then you started a homeschool network on your own to help other people homeschool. You give people these resources. So you really understand the problems. And so talk a bit specifically about education. I mean, you can talk about the parents' rights, but also the fact that everybody knows this, but it's weird how they either don't address it, they talk about ancillary issues, or they kind of obfuscate and act like, it's not a big deal. It must be this thing. They know that there is an education gap. Now, politically, the left and the right will agree on that. Now, how we got there and what we do about it, that's where the point of contention comes. But you kind of sit like me in the sense that we agree that there's a gap. We want to fix the gap. But the things we're hearing and the things that they're doing seem kind of odd and in some ways demeaning. So talk about these things, like they're saying that if you want to help Black kids, you need to teach them in a certain way. But beyond that, they're saying that they're hanging all of the problems on racism. So racism is the reason of the gap. Not saying that it can't be part of the reason, but to say that's the only reason means that's the only way you'll try to fix it. So talk about some of those things and the bad results that come from these bad intentions that they have.
Yes. So, as you said, my husband and I, we've been homeschooling 15 and a half years now. But being a homeschool parent, a homeschool mom, that has really given me insight of the dire need for children to really get a quality education. You know, what I like to call a morally sound education. And so I'm just passionate about what's happening to kids. You know, a lot of people have asked me, you know, you're homeschooling, basically why you care. Why I care? Because I care about people. I care about these kids. You know, it matters not to me. Your
Oh my God, stop that noise.
Yeah, it is this old computer. It matters not to me your faith or your ethnicity or your race. I just believe flat-footed, no one has the right to sexually or socially indoctrinate other people's kids. Period. You do not have the right to strip away their innocence in no area, from racist narratives to anything. And so, yes, you're right. There's a ton of arguments going on. I think one that we should all get behind, but it needs to be expanded and you know, needs much understanding to it, because you know, every state is different. But the whole school choice movement. For me, school choice is not an organization. It's common sense. You know, that's what I tell people. I ain't rallying behind an organization. I'm rallying behind how I live. This is my choice to homeschool my children. And so sometimes we have to kind of divert from all these cliches. No, it's just common sense. Parents have a God-given right to choose the best form of education for their children. So people coin school choice, coin education choice. It's just common sense. And they need to just grab hold to it from that regard. You just have that right in this country. And we should thank God for that. So in the pretext of school choice, homeschooling is there. Private school is there. I'm not an advocate for what is happening in the public education system.
To that. Let's go to the last time you were on the show, which is we're gonna have to get to that, from which I don't totally disagree with it, but I'm not running for governor, but for lieutenant governor. So that's gonna be an issue, because your thing is the public schools have gotten to the point that they're so bad. There's only one solution. Take your kids out of those schools.
That's it. That's the only solution. And so now, hey, as lieutenant governor and this great big governor thing, clearly I stand on what I said. No one has a right to indoctrinate other people's children. So those that choose to keep their kids in America's public education system, that's fine. So if I'm elected, if Max is elected as governor and I become Illinois' lieutenant governor, I would do everything within my power to make sure that those children that remain in the public education system have a quality education, morally sound education, learn arithmetic, reading, writing, and literature. They do not have to be sexually and socially indoctrinated. I'm going to fight
there. That's an interesting concept. I haven't heard this recently, so I got to think about it. I mean, it makes sense, but it's confusing because it's not what I hear in the media. So I got to sit on it for a minute. So you're saying you think there are better options, but the public schools are there and they know people are still going to go. So you have this weird concept where you think, what was it you said again? You want to teach them math, arithmetic, reading. You want to teach them skills that will give them the same opportunities as others, as opposed to focusing on sexualizing, you know, infusing race into everything and all that kind of stuff. That's an interesting concept. But somehow those who are doing that will tell you, I'm not indoctrinating. I'm helping Black and brown kids learn the way they learn. You need to do that in order to make them better math and science and English students.
Completely insane. Charles, I'm trying to be good on your show. Listen.
Well, don't make it seem like I'm supporting it. I'm just telling you what they say.
I know. Yeah, and I hear those arguments, which are just completely insane. And so I've said, you know, in a state like Illinois and New York and California, they all have tentacles of this. There's an insatiable appetite to sexually indoctrinate children. So I will ask them, okay, great. You want to teach them how to masturbate? All right. You want to teach them anal and oral sex? Okay. How is that going to get them a job? how are they going to take care of their families? How are they going to
They
be
won't be able to take care of the family, but they'll be able to better relate to other people, and that make them better citizens and better, more inclusive and a better, intersectional community. So who cares if they don't have a job? Because on the back end, we're going to take care of that. We're just going to give them money and fund everything.
Exactly. And that's exactly it, Charles. That is the agenda, to just literally destroy these children. And so again, if Max is elected as governor and Latasha Fields become lieutenant governor, that dogma is coming out. No matter how long or how hard it takes to fight, they will hear me loud and proud and strong that you will not continue under an administration where I'm dealing with literally sexually indoctrinate other people's children. Period, point blank, in the story. Neither will you continue these racist narratives, because this is the thing. Here in Illinois, Pritzker passed the bill where LGBT history, as you know, is now required, and children cannot graduate 8th grade without the comprehensive knowledge thereof. So what we need to be fighting for, and the whole thing is about banning CRT. I'm completely on board with banning the narrative within the context of CRT that Black children are perpetual victims and that white children are innate oppressors. That cannot be so. And all the other things that they're doing to segregate these children. Okay, we have to get that out of the school system. That has no place, not just in the school system, it don't even have a place in our society. Right. And so innocent babies, should not be indoctrinated with those kind of Marxist ideologies. And so we have to get those things out. So what we need to be fighting for is that viable American history is taught. And so I will go all the way back and say, you know what? At the end of the day, America has done a grave injustice to the American education system, because when Hiram Rebels became the first Black senator in 1870, why was that not in our books? And so when we talk about, when I talk about Black history and the way I teach my children Black history, we go all the way back to 1649.
Hold on. I like that. I was going to move to something else, but now you got me cooking. Now it's bubbling. So that's an interesting thing too, because we get skewed as people who don't want to teach true history or negative stuff about America or Black history. I can't speak for everybody. I'm not a Republican, so I can't speak for a Republican. But what I do know is I know a lot of them, and I've never heard any of them say, we got to get this Black stuff out of the schools. It's terrible, right? And the problem is those who are pushing the narrative, they leave so much stuff out. So you use an example. The reason it got me going is to use an example I love from the 1619 Project. I got a book about it. Now it's time for a shameful plug. Race Crazy, go pick it up. And I talk about the 1619 Project and how Nicole Hannah-Jones points out Hiram Rebels, and the same thing, the facts you just said she mentioned. So can I say she lied? No, he was the first Black U.S. Senator. He was elected in 1870, and against all the backdrop of all this racism. Totally true. But what she doesn't mention is how he got elected, right? So because, like you say, we don't teach anything and there's no racial context. So here's something that's really important. I probably said this before, but this is a really good example why what they're doing is bad. So that part is true. But one, from a civic side, most people don't know that up until 1913, I believe it was, senators weren't elected by a popular vote. So the state legislatures picked the senator. They elected the senator, right? So that's obviously is what happened in 1870. So the simple question is, so one, that's an educational flaw where we're not teaching simple civics. But beyond that, are we to assume in Mississippi, which is where he was senator, that the majority of the state legislature was Black? Because they were not. South Carolina is the only place that was just over 50%. So how did he get elected with only Black votes? Because that's the implication. And to be fair, they don't say the words, but that's what you imply when you say Blacks marched to the polls through all this oppression and they elected Hiram Rebels senator. Well, they did not elect him senator. The state legislature elected him, and they were mostly white. So if you're going to teach it, you need to teach that every white person wasn't on board, right? They marched him into the Senate. And when some of those white Democrat senators said, I will not sit with him being here, you can't seat him, who was there to fight him and just filibuster and to stand up and speak that this man will be sat and he has every right to be here as you? It wasn't a Black person. It wasn't me. It wasn't Nicole Hannah-Jones. But when you leave that out, you are also teaching false history. That is the problem with the thing. And then as far as Black history, I say that the flaw is that I don't like Black history. I'm starting to say that. I used to bite my tongue when I said, but now everybody's got me going. So I'm commonly saying this on my interviews and when I'm interviewed. I hate Black history, but I love Black people. The reason I hate Black history is because it's not intentional, but the way they frame it is as if you got American history, but you also need to take Black history as if we're separate from America. I want it taught. I want it taught better and more of it taught than what they're currently teaching. But I don't want it taught under some separate, separate but equal, shack in the back. I want it in the grand building of American history. I want what happened with Blacks and what Blacks contributed to be in there too.
Yes, and I agree. And that's why I said American history. So it's like teach American history, Black and white, teach it both. And so, in our homeschool organization, I have called myself trying to create what I call timeline. And so what we're teaching our students here in our co-op and in our school is American history. And we're kind of starting like from the president on down, and we're doing a parallel. So in George Washington time, what Blacks were on the scene in terms of sciences, business owners, entrepreneurs, doctors, etc., inventors, political, civics, the list is on, and just take that because it's simple for children. So we call it timeline. So it's very simple for kids. And so we're looking at George Washington, we go on down, and then we just highlight the contributions of the Black patriarchs that have went before us. And it's side by side, everything that everyone contribute that we can find. And that's the way we're kind of doing it. And so we don't negate a white history, American history, European history, and then you write and we just sit aside and do this. No, we teach it all in the same context. So like right now, they're learning Marcus Garvey right now in our homeschool group. So we're not just learning Marcus Garvey. Side by side, they're learning the U.S. Constitution because we're taking our time with it. We're not rushing it. So right now, side by side, they're learning the Constitution. They're learning Marcus Garvey, and we're seeing who was all the players, if you will, at the same time that Marcus Garvey was being very vocal against what was happening to Blacks in this country, and they're seeing the things parallel. From W.E. Du Bois, NAACP, et cetera. The list goes on. I'm talking to the choir with you. And so that's the way I believe that our education system should be. And you're right, I do not believe we should be, like you said, sit off to the side in some shack. We have contributed an enormous amount, just tremendous resilience to this country, and we have an equal platform to be there. And then our children need to see the resilience. They need to see leaders that have went before them, that have made ways. And I'm gonna say one more point. I'm gonna be quiet and let you finish, Charles. I say all the time, if America education system would just highlight those 7 Black men that went into government, do you know, it's like crying over spoiled milk, but do you know, I just believe in my heart of hearts, how much that would have impacted just me when I was in school, and impacted African-American children, Black children, to see somebody that looks like them in office that long ago during the time when we were just emancipated from slavery. It would have gave them a whole nother perspective of this country. Like you said, all white people are not racist. It would have gave them a perspective to really say, thank God for the abolitionists in this country. And so that's what we're doing now. So we can't go back, but we have to start now. If we get in office, they're going to teach that. Hiring rebels, if I got to do printout and ditto sheets and email them, they're going to know about these 7 Black people, and that were in office. Come on, are you serious? Teachers, executive order, you're going to be required to teach this in civics. They need to see that so that they can even get a better understanding of the political process in America.
Right. That's really important. I told you, you get us going, we can get going just on this topic now. So back to the state, you got to look at the views of, a state can be complex, and the cities it would be different from the suburbs, which is different from rural areas and different from this. So obviously you mentioned max and tax and fiscal issues, and they affect everybody. That's the one thing other than education that ties everything together, regardless of those differences. And I want to know what you think about that, in the sense that Max is right on the hit the nail right on the head in saying that the pension problem is massive, but Rauner kind of lost in the courts trying to just say, okay, let's throw this out and start over. Can I make these changes? Can I, adjust the current pensions? No. Or can I adjust the people coming in? So he got all these, judicial losses. So what, if anything, can we do from a fiscal standpoint to make it a more business-friendly state and stop, as you say, the flight to Iowa and Indiana and Wisconsin and everywhere else? What can we do to turn that around?
Well, Max has a plan.
Yeah, that ain't my plan.
Yeah, that's my plan. Max plan is my plan. So,
that's right. So you have a plan.
Yeah, we have a plan. I guarantee you, and this is not no political stunt. I'm telling you, Brother Max got a plan, okay? And it's ingenious, and so it's literally dealing with, as he has coined it, literally Constitution pension reform. And so Max is an attorney, as most may know, a lawyer, so he's seeing it very strategically through the discourse of law of how he can literally reform this pension crisis. And so when you have him on your show, I believe that that's going to be explosive, and a lot of our citizens in Illinois is going to be very pleased to hear that, the plan that he has. And so the only thing I can speak to is that he has one, and I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to Max sharing that real soon, right, with the citizens in this state. Yes.
What about crime? What are your thoughts on the crime in primarily Chicago that's been, kind of leaking into the suburbs and other areas? And obviously it's a problem. It's become like a national joke, but, what can we do to kind of focus on actually making a difference?
We talk about that all the time, of course, and the plan is the same. Max and I talk about, and some people in our team, that one of the things that has to happen is that when crime is committed, it has to be persecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I think this catch and release, if you will, is just such a lukewarmness when it comes to crime, in the state, and especially in a city like Chicago. And so we know Max's authority as governor, in terms of working with the attorney general to prosecute these crimes and just really enforcing the laws that we already have. And I would add to this, and Max would definitely speak to this too, that, being, definitely pro Second Amendment. And so we would definitely be advocating for Illinois citizens to have a right to bear firearms. And I think, scaling back laws that would infringe on legal citizens' rights to carry arms. It goes like, as we know, in some states like Texas or whatever, when these criminals know that the citizens have a right to bear arms, you may just have less crime. And so those are the things that we're definitely going to be focused on. And really just, if you will, I know being lieutenant governor, just kind of, if I'm elected as lieutenant governor with Max Solomon, is just really mobilizing our communities, in terms of not necessarily create new organizations, but really have more boots on the ground, that we can begin to listen to the people where these things are happening, and have preventative measures, and just really begin to listen to the community, because that's my heart. However, and whatever God do, I don't want to be disconnected from the people, because you can't lead a people you don't know. You can't keep going into these offices or into these communities and we just telling the people what we're going to do. Time out for that. Time out for telling people what we're going to do. We need to go ask the people, what do you need done? So we need to hear the cries of the people. And so that's where we are in the epitome of grassroots. So as God blesses, because the results are his, if we get in Springfield, we're going to have enough information, if you will, because we're out here on the ground. I'm talking to people. I'm not going and telling them what I want to do. I want to know what you need done, because you have to live in this neighborhood, on this street. Your children is in this school, and et cetera. And you know who's committing these crimes and who's doing what. And so that's what we're really, really focused on. My heart is to really be, regardless if it's Springfield or not, to be a representation, a representative, a leader, a servant for the people. People are hurting out here with all this mess going on. And nobody wants to come and act Chicago. I get so sick of that, Charles. So I'm on your show now. Listen, I get sick of that. I get sick of this media. I'm very tired of it. I'm very tired of bloggers and this and that. Everybody, like you said, Chicago is just a great narrative. You want to go viral, say something about Chicago. Where are the solutions? And all these people that go viral to talk about Chicago, none of y'all are down here doing anything. I want to see your viralness come into these streets and help us with these people, because this is the belly of the beast here. This is not a game. And I tell people, get beyond the statistics, get beyond the narrative. These are real people. These are human beings, and their lives are literally being affected. And that's where I'm at. I don't have time to play your little political shenanigans. I don't have time to play your statistics and your news media. People are hurting in the city of Chicago, and I hurt for these people because we're seeing them. I'm living next door to them. I'm driving down the street with them. So I'm not caring about what people are blogging and talking about on social media. We need help in the city of Chicago and everywhere where crime is like this. And school systems are literally destroying and trying to steal people's kids. You think I got time to play politics with you all? I don't have time to play politics with you all. And like you said, and you have to say, I'm living this. I don't have a political script. I don't have a political nothing. I'm bringing what I'm living. I'm bringing what I care about. People need to be restored. People need hope. They need to have confidence and hope reunited in government. Government is not bad. The Bible says this, Charles. Civil government is limited. There's only one authority, and that's of God. They say we do not have to fear government. Government is for them that commit evil, that do terror. But the righteous shouldn't have to fear government. So we need better representation. And I know the House and the state, we know we have to mobilize and get majority and everything. But irregardless to what, I believe strongly, if Max and I are elected, no matter how hard the fight may be, if we continue to sound the alarm, Charles, you got to plant the seed. Because I tell people the problems that we're seeing, they didn't happen overnight. But we know we serve a God that does miracles. But these things did not happen overnight. We're talking about 40-something years of what we're seeing now is the manifestation of those things. So it's not going to be overnight to undo these things. We got to till the ground, Charles. And we can't do it hiding behind computers, hiding behind social media. We got to get out here and get boots on the ground and begin to talk to these people. That's what me and Max and Devin and all of us be talking about, because I'm part of Southside Republican organization here with Devin Jones, and I'm the 21st Ward Committee woman. And that's what we're doing. We got to go back to the old school. We got to do some real evangelism, and we got to door knock. Have they forgot? You got to meet people, like literally talk to human beings. Like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're actually talking to them. We need to meet them. They need to know they can trust us. They need to know I'm not in this to get a paycheck, because when you accept this kind of leadership role, this kind of call from God, it doesn't cost, but it pays, Charles. You understand? There's an investment into this. This is not nothing light. And people want to, I get so sick of these people. They just want power and control and just to be lording over people's lives. No, and using people's lives as narratives and bullet points. Come on, that's enough of that. It's enough of that. I'm sorry, Charles.
No, that's good.
To be helpful, real.
And the passion is real, I know. So I guess we should end on, you and Max, and this is kind of like your time to do your little promo commercial, like, you can tell people, no, really, tell us why you mentioned earlier that there's a crowded field. So with all the people running, why you and Max, about, what makes you all different. You say you talk to the people. So what are you hearing their concerns are? And then finally, just give us the information, websites or whatever, where they can go and find you or donate if they want to.
Yes. So I believe a Solomon and Fields ticket is the best ticket. Number one, we're on the ground with the people. And we're on the ground where, as the Bible says, the least of them, where, if you will, the enemy is attacking the worst. And so we need to literally fix Illinois. Okay. That is Max's, slogan, and it's real. Let's fix Illinois. I come from a biblical perspective, Isaiah 58:12. Let's be the repairers of the breach. Let's repair our generation. Let's restore these waste places. That's who we are. And that's why I feel confident that we got just as much a chance to win as anybody else, because we care about the people. And I have said this in many meetings. As I go forth and I'm meeting so many wonderful people, I must admit, I'm just really blessed and honored for all the people I have met so far. And again, I know it hasn't even begun yet. But my heart to them and my message to them is, I'm looking at candidates, I'm looking at people, whether it's governor, local, wherever. I'm looking for your trajectory. I'm looking for your testimony. Because now everybody wants to be everybody want to be governor. Everybody want to be whatever office you're running, but you're very serious right now. Everybody's serious. Everybody mean business, yes. But people ain't just start getting affected in 2020. People's lives have not just been getting damaged in 2020. So I'm looking for the testimony. I'm looking for where have you been in terms of reaching the least of these? Where have you been on the ground? See, it's time out for, when you decide you run from office, we see you then during the election cycle, then we don't see you no more. See, it's time out for that. We need real leadership. We need real leadership. And see, leadership is called, it's birth. It's not appointed by men. Ain't no man appoint me. It's called, it's in you. Because God said, I knew you from the foundation of the world. It's in you. We need real leadership that care about the people, that are servants to the people, that would do this without a dime, that would still say, I'll go. That's the difference between me and Max. I can't speak for anybody else. I've heard them all, but I can't speak to it. All I can speak to is who I am, who my husband and I are, and what Illinois can expect from us.
And I want to say, if people want to know more about that, you and your husband and the things that, bringing the receipts, so to speak, of what you actually stand for. I just recently read What's Up Chicago and interviewed Matt Rosenberg, and he featured you two prominently in the book. And, you point out some really important things about the problems and what we need to do. So I think that shows that you are invested in what's going on.
Yeah, I am. And so we, again, there's many things that could be said to fix all these problems, but I'm serious, Charles. We have to focus on the family. We have to focus on the restoration of our families and build there. We have to meet the people. And if you will, one family at a time, one community at a time, one block at a time. This problem is massive, and so we're not going to give false expectations and say, we elected, Chicago, Illinois will be turned around on that. No, we're not doing no broad brushstroke over nothing. We're going to be very practical. And we're going to be very practical and tell people, listen, we got real problems and they're going to need real solutions. And we have to take it one day at a time.
So tell them the website and where they can find you.
So we can be found, very simple, maxsolomon.org. So very simple, maxsolomon.org. Max is there. I am there. They can definitely go there to support us. We're in the petition cycle. So we need volunteers. We can never get enough volunteers. We need people to help circulate the petition. And definitely we need donations, right? We're not in this for the money, but it does takes money, right? As the Bible says, money answers all things. So yes, we all campaigns, of course, need money. So please, go on our site and donate to just help us get this message out. We have to do a lot of traveling it's a governor's race. We have to do a lot of traveling and things like that. So we can definitely use Illinois support in this. So again, maxsolomon.org, we are there. They can reach out to us at any time and we would love to hear from them. Yes.
She is Latasha Fields, candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Illinois. Latasha, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Charles, for always having me. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Yes.